Uh, Hello, everyone. Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Yeah, I've seen the comments about the title. Yes, I know Lynette Zhang uses that term, survive and thrive. I didn't really mean to copy her, uh, but I guess she doesn't have a patent on it. I could have said survive and prosper as well. So, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. I remember over a year ago or 2 years ago when I started my live stream, I had to wait until people came on. Thank you for your presence here. Uh, Catman 734. Do you think gold will pull back before increasing to 2000? Yeah, in the short term, gold could do anything really. I think we pulled back a little bit last week towards around 1795 or low 1790s. It's held up quite well. To be honest, I'm not too concerned if it with the short-term price. I think it's going to continue to go higher. I think we are breaking out in gold, and we will in silver as well eventually. Let's see who's here. We've got Grow Mechanic, High Grow Mechanic, Catman 734, Idi Amin Dada. I thought he was dead, but opinion on euro dollar exchange rate. I think it's not really going to go anywhere. It's going to stay between 105 and 115. I think you should focus on precious metals. Precious metals are going to go up versus both of them. Brady Girding from Indiana. Hi, Brady. Aleem, looking forward to today's video. Hello from Long Island, New York. Thank you. Joshua Porter, I made it on time. Great. Cupid Stunt. Hello, Mario. Billy Bullion. Yeah, Billy is here right now. I had to go upstairs and he was in my daughter's room with her. And I had to say to him, it's time to go to work, Billy. Aleem watches every morning. Great. I'm glad you enjoy it. I try to make it as interesting as possible. Yeah, it's not great, the situation in Lebanon. And I think the bankers, I think everyone is to blame, but especially the bankers and the politicians. They make the system really possible to happen, and they lure in the people, the general public. And this is what I try to do here in my videos, to try to keep people away from playing the bankers and the politicians game. And that's why I think you can still survive the difficulties that we're facing right now and even prosper. I think we get too bogged down in trying to think that the world is perfect. Am I saying we shouldn't be nice to other people and be follow the golden rule? No, I'm not saying we shouldn't. But all I'm saying, we can't worry about the rest of the world not following it, and I think that's what we have to focus on. We can't be too idealistic in terms of the whole picture. Am I saying we can't try to wake people up? No, but I think we need to be focused more on ourselves, our families, our friends, and close community. And that's why I think people can still prosper in the current situation. Of course, you need to be have your financial and economic and even spiritual house in order to do that, I would say. Jesus Arellano, hello from Phoenix, Arizona. Hi, Jesus. Thank you. Or Jesus, if you want to pronounce it like that. Jeff Brown, do you pay Billy in silver bullion? Yeah, Billy only accepts silver, but then he doesn't take any other currency. And I don't mind paying him in silver. Katie from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's great to see people from all around the world. Silver Retard from Omaha, Nebraska. We got Hard Rock from Melbourne, Australia. Great. Bob Roast, question, when the dollar falls, the whole world loses, except Americans. Am I right? No, I think even Americans lose because if the dollar falls in purchasing power, you're not going to be able to buy as much, Bob. So no, everyone loses, even Americans. No from Colorado, hot in Colorado. Kroger Lady, hi Kroger Lady. Derek Barwise, John Lord from Manchester, Turbo Star. I'm trying to get as many people as possible. If I miss you, it's not because I don't like you, but we're getting already almost 300 people here. Yeah, it's quite a nice day here in England, outside London. Well, in the suburbs. It was warm today. It wasn't that windy, so it was good weather for golf. I played a competition this morning. I actually came second, and I had the same score as the winner, but he beat me on the back nine. He had a better back nine. I actually won if we hadn't counted for the handicap. I was 4 over par, so it was a good round. I'm happy about that. I try to just focus on playing, not worrying about my swing. So that's what happened. Tracy Stark from Puerto Rico, Marcin Skowinski from Poland. We've got Joanna C. from Boston, Tony from Omaha, USA, Euro Dude from Malta. Yeah, I was in Malta about 8 years ago. One of my cousins decided to get married there. We went up to, I forgot the place. It's a historic town up in the mountains. Really beautiful place to get married. Malta. I enjoyed Malta. TurboStar says Manarino thinks the stock market's still going up. Well, I think the stock market has been driven by the tech companies. I think it's getting a little bit frothy, but markets can remain irrational for a long time. But I think they're still overvalued. I'm sticking to right now. I always have precious metals as protection, gold and silver, physical, my GDXJ, and my Tanzanian. That's doing quite well. So yeah, Tesla, $1,500. I mean, it's crazy, I think. Maybe people think that will be the future Tesla, and it could very well be. But back in the mid to late 90s, the same thing happened to Amazon. People thought it was the future, and they were right, but they kind of got ahead of themselves. Then we had the dot-com bubble burst. And of course, longer term, Amazon has done well. So I'm not saying that Tesla is not going to go do well in the longer term, but I think in the short term, it's a little bit frothy, very frothy, I would say. Metallic Miner, yeah, golf can be a good walk spoiled. Today, I actually enjoyed it because I played well, but you're right about that. Abacentry, stakeholder capitalism. I don't really know what that means, stakeholder capitalism. I'm sorry. Maybe I haven't really looked into it. What I believe in is the free market. People, going about their business with very little interference and from the government. And the only way you can save capital is to produce more than you consume. That's the way I look at it. Full of hope. Hi, full of hope. Should we still hold cash for the first stage, or will it be unacceptable at shops because it is infected? Well, a lot of shops are not taking paper currency anymore, but I think you can still hold it here in the UK. It's still legal tender. Even if they phased it out, they'd still allow you to take it to the bank and put it into your account. So I wouldn't be worried about holding cash, even though I'm not sure it's going to work. Uh, but who knows? Girl, OG Elon Musk, it looks so fake. It must be real. Tesla in space. Yeah, I wouldn't touch Tesla either. Uh, I think I told. I'm not sure if you guys remember. I went to somewhere this week, and I was driving back home. I thought to myself, I'm gonna look at all the cars driving around, around, and I drove back about 15 minutes. Not a long drive, but I couldn't see one Tesla on the road. I saw all the other cars, Volkswagen, Vauxhall, Ford, Audi, Volkswagen, Opel, Mitsubishi. I didn't see one Tesla. I don't know. John Colorado, have you heard anything about cash or coin shortages? I haven't, not here in the UK. I haven't heard about that. The problem about cashless society or no paper currency, because technically, really, cash is gold and silver. That was the term for if you took your promissory note to the bank, they'd give you cash, which was gold and silver. But anyway, that's something different. But the bad thing about it is that not only will the banks be even more reckless because people will have to keep all their balances in the bank. They can't like withdraw. So they're going to even leverage even more. The other thing as well is they're going to be able to track you because if you use your debit or credit card, they will know where you have been. But there are some cards though that you can they're like you can top them up with cash, and I don't think you need to have your name on it. So you could try to. I think they're available here in the UK. I'm not sure if they're available in other places. That's another option. You get the cash and you top up these cards, but the problem is a lot of the places where you can top up the cards, they might not accept the cash anymore. So it is a problem. What can we do? I don't know. We just have to try to. What you should do if shops say no cash, still try to pay with cash. And some of the teller, the assistants or the people that work in the shop, they'll accept it. So if we keep trying to use cash, even though a lot of times it's more convenient to use the card, they might change their minds. I don't know the solution. Jesus Arellano, thank you for the super chat. Does the U.S. government have fixed gold price? And if the U.S. reverted to a gold standard, would the U.S. government revalue the dollar? Um, yeah, the Treasury official price is $42.22. But if the U.S. government decided to go back to a gold standard, if they use that price, they'd run out of gold very quickly. They'd have to revalue the price a lot higher. Some people think it could be around 10 or 12,000. It depends on how much the Fed's balance sheet or the Fed's liabilities are. So I think there are calculations that back in 1980, when gold went almost to $900, the Fed's assets or liabilities were 135% backed by gold. Right now, I think it's in the less than 10% or maybe a little more. So that's what you need to think about the Fed's balance sheet. I guess the liabilities are about 7 trillion because that's what the assets are. So they couldn't go back to $42.22 because there would be a run on their gold. Yeah, they keep that price. I think basically to say that gold isn't really that important. So Yeah. Why do I say that we can prosper even in times of turmoil, financial and currency turmoil? Well, because I think as long as you got your financial house in order, as long as you are still able to generate an income through whatever you do for an income, your job or your business, you should be okay as long as you're not exposed to the banks, to the financial system, as long as you stay away from paper. And why do I say that? It might sound arrogant. Well, because I lived in Brazil. I grew up in Brazil, and lived there till probably was eight. I was 18 or 20 or thereabouts. And I can tell you that we had a few currency collapses while I was growing up, but things still went uh, on as normal. Of course, the majority of people did not benefit from it. But if you're aware of what's going on, you can protect yourself and maybe even help those people who have been hurt from uh, the mismanagement of the currency. And the reason I say that is because my father, he did all right while all this was going on. And I always remember him being very generous to people and helping people. So that's all you can do, I think. And trying to change things is hard. Of course, we can try, and this is what we do here in this channel. So that's what I wanted to say tonight. And now, I'll take some questions from you guys as well. Jack Nichols, it's advisory only to pay card. They have to take cash. Have an email from IMP who is taking this up with the Chancellor of the Exchequer. They have to take cash. Yeah, it's true, Jack, because cash is still legal tender. It's illegal for them not to accept cash. So I agree. Uh, I've said that I went to somewhere earlier this week, and I said, and I had my card out, and I said, "Do you take cash?" And the girl said, "No, we don't take cash." And I said, "Do you know that cash is legal tender? It's illegal to not accept it." And she said, "Well, you have to contact my boss." So it's inconvenient. So yeah, maybe that's the thing to do. Contact the people in charge of the companies that are saying this, because legally they're supposed to accept cash. So there you go. Tony says, Brazil, how did people thrive in currency collapse? Well, if you didn't hold much of that currency in Brazil, if you were fortunate enough to be able to save and then convert your savings into dollars, you were okay. So there is a lot of opportunities. People think, Brazil, third world country. Yes, there's a lot of poverty, inequality, a bit like what's going on now in the West, but you can always thrive uh, in any situation. Uh, I go back to the Chinese. They call crisis an opportunity, same word. So as long as you know it's happening, you can protect yourself. But if you sit there with, back in Brazil in the 80s, let's say, if you're doing well and you kept your money in the bank in the local currency, uh, in a few years' time, you weren't doing well anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. But if you had dollars, you would protect your purchasing power, and you would actually do even better. You could buy a lot of things that people had to get rid of because they weren't aware of what was happening, and they were stuck in the local currency. So that's how you can thrive, as long as you don't hold too much of the fiat currency or the national currency. And I think that's happening now in the West, in the US, in Europe, in the UK. Uh, Turbo Star, thank you for the super chat. Mary, do you think I should stop paying AVCs to my work Is it Deutsche Bank pension scheme? Even though it's tax efficient, 25% of my savings, just put my money into precious metals. Hi, Turbo Star. I think you mean it's Deutsche Bank private pension. It's funny because one of the guys I used to work, like he was the head of my desk, the last job I had. He had a Deutsche Bank pension. Yeah, you need to. Deutsche Bank's still going on, but there's a lot of worries about Deutsche Bank. Not only Deutsche Bank, but other too big to fail banks. I don't give advice, but I know you get a 40% kicker, I guess, from your pension, private pension. But maybe you could put a little bit into precious metals, maybe not all of it. If you're able to do that, that's what I would do. Yeah, do half and half. But or maybe not even, stop paying into the Deutsche Bank pension if you already have paid enough into it. I'm not sure how that would affect it. Defined benefits, I guess that means that you have to keep paying into it. I'm not sure. But yeah, do whatever you can to maybe be less exposed to it. It's not advice. It's what I would be doing. Dave Humphreys, how screwed is the world, Barrett? What it's looking like generally? Yeah, I mean, there. I really think the powers that be are trying to really go big into their agenda. To keep to have like a very authoritarian and globalist world, but they might succeed in the short term, but in the longer term, I think we need to stick to our principles. And what are our principles, or at least mine, is yeah, you can't unfortunately get out of the system completely, but you need to be aware of what's happening and be a little bit outside the system, or as much as you can, like through the precious metals, through what you think about as well. Yeah, that's all I can say. And maybe I don't know. Don't watch the mainstream media, television. I don't. And even though I do read the newspapers, the FT, the Telegraph, only because we need to keep in touch with what's happening. So difficult. Yeah, it's difficult, but you just need to focus on yourself, your family, and do what you enjoy. Not get too bogged down on it, even though it's hard sometimes. I'm trying to see as many questions as possible. Golden Gate. Why not borrow all you can and now and buy gold and silver? That is easy to negotiate during times of crisis. Who cares about credit when currency fails? Golden Gate. Yeah, it might sound, it's too easy to do that, I think, and that's why it's dangerous. If you, from the work I've, well, not work, but from the reading I've done, research I've done, the bankers, they're always in charge pretty much. And if, like in the 1923 hyperinflation in Germany, yeah, a lot of mortgages just were written off in the old currency, but then when they reset the system and they brought about the Rentenmark, they didn't forget about the mortgages, so you can be sure that they won't forget about your borrowing. So I wouldn't trust them. That's why, yeah, it sounds really great to borrow as much as you can and buy precious metals, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Gur Oji, my friend from Norway, says he hasn't watched TV for 10 years now. That's good. I remember my sister had a friend back in the 80s, and he was from Barbados. And I think his uncle was like a politician. And I met him. He's a nice guy. And he said, Mario, don't watch TV. And I said, why? He said, well, no, he said, I never watch it. So I thought that was strange at the time. I wish I had like followed his advice, because I kept on watching TV. I haven't really watched much TV for years now. The only time I watch some of the news is when people put clips on YouTube. John Colorado, read Fiat Money Inflation in France and just finished When Money Dies. Thanks for the recommendation. Yeah, they're good books, those books. They really help me understand what's going on in the present. Graham Hobbs, can you see a situation where bond yields will be capped? Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. Yield curve control. Yeah, they can cap it, but the only way they can do that is through creating more and more money or credit out of thin air. The central banks would have to go into the market and keep, when yields start going up or the price is going down, they go in there and buy it. I guess by stating that they're going to do that, they will keep the market capped without having to create the fiat currency credit. So yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. That's been done before. The U.S. Federal Reserve did that during World War II. I think that's even more bullish for precious metals, because that means even if inflation is going up, prices are going up. It's not, these bonds are not going to provide a decent real income for people. So yeah, that's possible. That is possible, but they could be tested. The central banks, people could say, fine, if you're going to do that, we're going to test you. And what does that mean? Well, we're going to start selling bonds to see if you're really going to keep the yields there. So it's interesting, but we need to keep an eye on it. Yeah, and they can keep that going for a while just by saying that they're going to do it, but eventually they're going to have to really act. Baba Joe, when you experienced the currency failures in Brazil, was silver barterable? No, I mean, that's the thing. I haven't really lived in Brazil for ages. I was there 5 years ago, and Brazilians still, I think, use a lot the U.S. dollar. I remember my dad, because in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, dollar was as good as gold. So I think, no, there was not much silver barterability or gold. It was, if you had dollars, you're okay. Am I saying the dollar is good? No. And I think a lot of people in Brazil could be hurt because they still think the dollar, only because the currencies in Brazil have been so rubbish, that any other currency that's not rubbish looks good. So no, there wasn't any gold or silver at the time in Brazil. Just have a sip of my coffee. Mr. Guppy, what happens to precious metals when they get a whiff of deflation from all the restaurants in the world going bankrupt? Well, the thing about precious metals is that, or gold and silver, is that they actually do well in deflationary periods because they don't have any counterparty risk because you hold it physically. And when you have a deflation, and I agree with you about the restaurants, when you have bankruptcies and stuff, gold and silver do really well. it's when things are pretty stable in the fiat currency system that gold and silver don't do well. If you look back in the 30s during the Great Depression, gold did very well. They revalued it from $20.67 to 35. Home stake mining, I know they confiscated gold, but home stake mining was up 500%. So yeah, what the period or the situation where gold doesn't do well is when you go from a low level of debt and you have inflation under control, and the market's doing well and the economy doing well. And that's what happened in the 80s and 90s. But we're nowhere close to that now. Debt levels are huge. So I don't think, yeah, gold and silver will do well, even in a deflationary collapse or a hyperinflationary collapse. So yeah, I don't agree with Harry Dent. Chinese yuan, yeah, I've noticed the Chinese yuan has risen a little bit recently. We've tested 7. Don't really have much of a view. I think it's well, when you look back the last 8-9 years, it's one of the best performing currencies versus gold, along with the dollar and the Swiss franc. So that's the Chinese yuan. Padenda, any gold stocks I really like? Well, I've got GDXJ and GDX, the ETFs right now, and I have TRX, Tanzanian Royalty Corporation. So those are the ones I like. Yeah. No says, back in February, I walked into my local bank branch in Florence, Colorado, and these 2 Loomis guys were huffing and puffing while pushing a lorry loaded with 3 large plastic totes of coins. Simon Bevan, which currency to collapse following Lebanon? I don't know. I mean, the pound almost was in free fall back in March. It was only through the Fed swaps, the Federal Reserve coming in and helping. But I don't know. But I think the thing about Lebanon that I thought was interesting is that the banks there have been, like they said in the article, the jewel in the crown of the economy. So I'm worried about the UK because the banks are like the jewel in the crown here. So it could be the pound. Who knows? But yeah, I'm concerned about the pound because we have a huge dependency on finance here, just like the Lebanese had. Pablo Pina, if Trump's economic task force sanctioned Chinese banks, what precautions will this have, if any? Repercussions, you mean? I don't know. I mean, I don't think the Chinese banks are too well. The repercussions, I guess, if they started stopping Chinese banks from dealing in dollars, the Chinese would probably start unloading their U.S. treasuries. Why would they want to deal with the U.S. if the U.S. doesn't allow Chinese banks to deal with the U.S.? I think the Chinese still have like $1 trillion worth of treasuries. So I think it would be a stupid thing to do. It would be the U.S. shooting itself in the foot. Yeah, John, Colorado, copper is looking good. Yeah, I've noticed that. And in my video from yesterday, I talked about how most other commodities are not really doing much, but copper, gold, and silver are. Lily Robin says there's coin shortages everywhere. Yeah, that's why when people ask me, should I wait to buy gold and silver after a correction, I think that's the wrong question to ask. You should try to get out of paper as much as you can. Even if we drop $50 in gold or $1 in silver, uh, it's still going to be really hard to get those physically. Connect to Scope. What's your views on the lot on IOTA? Yeah, I think IOTA is Internet of Things. Is it IOTA? I think I owned some of that a few years ago. The cryptos are very volatile, and there's loads of new projects coming and going. And I've been involved in cryptos for years. And what I would say, if you're going to get involved in cryptos, it's a full-time job because so many things change. So yeah, IOTA, yeah, Internet of Things with 5G, it could do well. It could be something to some coins to have and put it in the drawer and forget about it. John Colorado, Keith Newmeyer. Yeah, I've heard of the guy. Yeah, he's bullish on silver. Copper's doing as well. And copper and silver are a lot of times copper mines. A lot of the silver is mined through copper mines. It's like a byproduct. Patrick Gelpke, what would happen to gold and silver if Comex runs out of stock? Well, I don't think Comex has much stock. They come out with the data that they have eligible and registered, but that's just like in March, people actually try to get physical gold, and they had real problems. So yeah, I think the Comex hopefully will go the way of the dodo bird. Comex is a paper market. It's a bucket shop where they bet on the price. Baba Joe, the Bank of England is meeting tomorrow on YouTube for a webinar regarding the end game of the LIBOR transition. What does this mean? Well, yeah, LIBOR is the London Interbank Offered Rate. That's the usually 1 month, 3 month, or 6 month, or 1 year rate that bankers and traders use, or borrowers they use as a reference. That's the rate at which you can borrow in the London market in dollars or sterling. And there was a huge scandal back in the '08 crisis. The Bank of England was involved in it as well, and they're trying to get people off, using LIBOR and using new benchmarks. But they haven't been very successful because the bankers and traders and borrowers and speculators, they still like to use LIBOR, even though LIBOR is supposed to be how can I say, unsecured loan amongst banks. And and it's not really a market that even exists anymore, but the bankers still use that. And what the Bank of England and the Fed are trying to do is get people to wean off LIBOR, and they haven't done it. So it's quite serious. And I made a video about it, I think in January or February, beginning of February. So if you go into my YouTube channel and you go under videos and search for LIBOR, I explained there what's happening. Sigma 6, please explain what happens during a currency reset. Well, a reset is a correction, and basically it's a rebalancing of values. And I would say for 40 years, if you look at debt levels, they've gone astronomically high, and you've had interest rates go down, and all that's helped is paper and financial assets, while real tangible goods are still undervalued. So what happens in the currency reset? Uh, the relative value of paper assets to gold and silver, especially because those represent, real commodity money, they revalue. So that's what happens in the reset. That's what happened. The last reset, I would say, was 1980, when gold went like to 875 or $887 an ounce from 35 just 10 years before. And then you had the Dow got stuck around 800. So the Dow gold ratio got down to 1. That was a reset. And then from there, gold languished for 2 decades, and the stock market went up. So that's what I would say a reset is. Yeah, Billy's he jumped off the sofa. He's on the floor, lying down. Sander says house prices in Holland are still going crazy. Oh, of course they are, and here they're still doing well. But you need to look at house prices in terms of real money. So gold prices are going crazy in euros as well. Hi, Ben Gray. Nice to see you here. Are you welcome, Sigma 6? The real Scott, do you see a scenario like Jim Rickards sees? Are you talking about the SDR? I'm not sure which scenario we're talking about there, or the ICE 9. Be a little more specific. I mean, I had Jim Rickards on a few months ago, trying to get him back on. Where the best Bitcoin info at? Well, I mean, for cryptocurrency prices, you can go to CoinMarketCap or worldcoin.com. So, or you just Google Bitcoin and you read about it. Aftermath. Yeah, I mean, I agree pretty much with what Jim Rickards says, in that book. So, but right now I don't remember off the top of my head what he said there. Yeah, Jim Rickards, I contacted him about 6 weeks ago, and they're supposed to get back to me at the end of June, but they haven't yet. I might have to contact him again. He's been writing a new book, so he hasn't had much time. V Bjorn Gritton, yeah, silver. The thing about silver is that it's it goes up a lot, when there's a bull market, and it goes down a lot. So that's the thing with silver. It's a very volatile precious metal, but it will do well as well. But yeah, you need to be nimble. But yeah, Golden Gate is still thinks it's okay, good to borrow. Uh, well, borrowing means you got to deal with the bankers, and I don't trust them. That's why I don't borrow as much as I try to avoid it like the plague. Georgia Sad says silver currently 120 to 1. No, I think the ratio is now back below 100, George. Historically, yeah, like going back hundreds of years, it's around 16 to 1. How can we survive and thrive if we can't predict anything? Well, I think we can predict that things are going to be unstable. And, if you can keep your head, not lose your cool, and keep a hold of your precious metals, don't borrow like Golden Gate uh, advises, then I think you can do well. Uh, you know, by not losing or gaining, but keeping your savings in a time where things are as they are is a big plus. So that's how I see it. Good price to sell silver. I don't know. I don't know. Right now, if tomorrow we woke up and it was at $100, yeah, maybe I'll sell some, but it could be at 1,000 in a month's time. So I think you hold silver and gold more as a insurance, and uh, if you need to spend your precious metals, it doesn't really matter the price. It's like savings, I would say. I wouldn't be concerned too much about the fiat price. Yeah, that's right, Lily Robin. Never sell your metal unless you're buying something you need or another hard asset. Or, if you have a business and you need to expand, or you need some new equipment, or if you have family that want to start a business and you know that they're good at what they do, then you can invest in them and then you sell them. Philip Bell talking about the Iraqi dinar. I wouldn't touch Iraqi currency. Why would you want to have an Iraqi dinar if if the dollar or the pound or all the fiat currencies are rubbish? Why would you want an Iraqi dinar? I think that's a big distraction. I've heard that for years. Forget about the Iraqi dinar. Patrick Gelbke regarding Comex running out of metals. What would it do to the price? Well, it, it would mean higher prices. Right now, they're still controlling the paper price, but I think they're having a hard time. Yeah, Philip Bell says he's doubled his money. Doubled what? Federal Reserve notes? Is that really money? You know, I've had gold since 2002. So it's more than doubled. And even since 2015, it's almost doubled now. So why would you want to have really Iraqi dinars? Nah, thank you. If the thing is, if you can't even trust the Federal Reserve note, why would you trust an Iraqi dinar? It's enough of that anyway. Real estate prices. Well, the thing about real in a hyperinflation, you can't really shift any goods really because the money disappears. So there's no really. It's really hard to value real estate. If you have precious metals, of course, you can get some really good bargains because people get desperate because they can't sell their real estate for fiat, and the fiat is worthless. So you could get some really good deals if you keep a hold of your precious metals. Golden Gate, what is wrong with borrowing for the right purpose? As I said, Golden Gate, I borrowed before, I guess, when I was younger and I started my family. I took a mortgage, but yeah, and it wasn't a bad move, but it's getting worse and worse. I don't trust the bankers. So that's, if you trust the bankers, Golden Gate, go ahead and borrow, but I won't. Lucas Federici says he's got 100,000, 100,000 what? 100,000 potatoes or on Bitcoins. Yeah, Bitcoin hasn't done much in the last 3 years. So, it has gone up since it bottomed, but we're still like about 50% off the highs. I think Bitcoin could do well, but the way I've benefited from cryptocurrencies is through posting a lot of my videos on platforms like DTube and Steemit and BitChute. And I've earned cryptocurrencies, which I've been able to convert into fiat and to provide myself with an income. So, people focus too much on the price. How about using cryptocurrencies to actually earn an income? And that's what I've been doing. So there you go. Lord Humongous says real estate is already cracking. Yeah, I think commercial real estate is going to be the next thing that's going to get hurt. And also residential, because all the mortgage forbearances, they're not going to keep going on forever. And I think a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, not only in the US, after all the stimulus and furloughs are gone. Yeah. Things like Full of Hope said, things are so uncertain. And I think they're going to remain uncertain because the powers that be want to bring the world economy down, because they want people to clamor for a solution, and that's the whole game. They want people to for them to say, oh, do what you guys think is right, and they're gonna give us a horrible system, unfortunately. And yeah, we have to try to resist that, even though I think it's gonna be hard. Laurent or Laurent, do you believe we live under fascism? Well, fascism is like the fasci comes from Rome, the sticks wrapped together. That means, I think that signified like the people who kept the order, rule of law. So, yeah. But nowadays, fascism is seen as authoritarianism. So yeah, I think we are in the authoritarian system, even though we're told that the West is democratic. So yeah, if you think fascism is authoritarianism, yeah, I think we are in such a system. Graham Hobbs, are there any fundamentals or scenarios where you could one more pull back on gold in the near future? Fundamentals, maybe the fact that the Fed is letting its balance sheet shrink a little bit. That's keeping gold a little bit from, even though we're right near the 90-year highs. They're having a tough time. So that's the only thing I can think of. Fundamentally, though, the only thing that I would say would be a danger to the bull market in precious metals is if central banks started raising interest rates. Can you see that happening? I don't. But technically, they can always try to bash gold and silver in the short term. But as we've seen in the recent weeks and months, every time they do that, it comes straight back up. And then you try to buy some physical, and the dealers don't have any, or the premium is really high. Baba Joe, could the mayor of Seattle possibly permitted the protests or destruction of the city in order to lower commercial real estate prices so they could buy it back on the cheap? I have no idea about that question. Sorry. I know what's going on in Seattle, but I try not to get distracted by all these things. You're not going to get too much from my channel about all the upheaval. The only thing I would say is that all the upheaval is even more positive for precious metals, even more negative for national fiat currencies, because it means that the powers that be are kind of losing credibility and power, and national fiat paper currencies need a stable government. And I don't think we got stable governments, and especially in the US, it's getting very unstable. But I won't look at the details. But it wouldn't be out of out of the realms of possibility that that would be the case. Maybe Bill Gates knows the mayor of Seattle and he's involved. Who knows? And he's buying on the cheap. Lucid Chronicles, how much crypto should I have? Well, that's for you to decide, not me. I would say though, yeah, 5% is probably the top that I would have, because I still think cryptos are very volatile. They're not something that you can hold and sleep soundly at night, but they could go to the moon, so to speak. So 5% you know would be a good amount, I would say. I'll take a few more questions. We got a couple of minutes to the hour mark. Anton Shatsuli, is silver difficult to sell in the bubble? No, precious metals are the most marketable commodities, which means they're like money. So it's never difficult to convert gold and silver into fiat currency if you want. Yeah. Possibilities of de-dollarization. Well, that just means that less and less people are using the dollar as reserves, especially other countries. And I think that's going to continue. So all that for Americans, what that will mean is there will be less demand for dollars. So the value of the dollar will go down. So you're going to have more and more, everything that you're going to buy with dollars is going to cost more. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue, unless Jay Powell came out tomorrow and said he was going to let the free market set interest rates, which would probably mean interest rates higher than 10%, but that's not going to happen. Mobius, excuse me. Mobius 7, is it time to sell property if you can get market rate and buy gold? It depends. I mean, if you have one property in which you live in, I wouldn't sell it. I think it's always good to have your own property. But if you have 10 other properties, yeah, maybe it is time to sell some and get some gold. So, yeah. All right. So thank you everyone for showing up again. And I wish you all a great rest of the weekend or a great start of the week if you are in Australia, New Zealand, or Asia. And I wish you all a great week. And yeah, like MM knows says, keep stacking, keep away from the bankers and their shenanigans. Yeah, and you'll be okay. And yeah, thank you, Peter Richard, for your super chat. Take care, everyone.